the more flexibility you're allowed in terms of size, height, location, those kinds of things. Currently, I mean, if you're under a half an acre, you're limited to a 16-foot tall structure, which for a lot of our residents wouldn't accommodate what they wanted to use the structure for. So, and then in terms of flexibility as well, there is a section on special exceptions, and that, understanding that our ordinance can't accommodate every property in the city, the special exemption will kind of give us some tools that we can work with residents that have unique situations so that we can address accessory structures on their individual properties. So that being said, our action options tonight are to approve, to deny, or continue. We're hoping with all of the updates that we've made with the Planning Commission and City Council that we can move this forward tonight, but that being said, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
I knew this was coming.
No, actually, I just wanted to thank you because I really like the adjustments you made to the agricultural standards. It's rather than, it's not wordy, it's just very simple, and it carves things out very nicely. So thank you for the changes that have been made there. I think it's appropriate.
Thank you for the suggestions.
Is there any comments? Because I'll make a motion.
Wow.
One thing I did want to make a comment on is, and sorry, I was trying to make sure I could reference everything, is in 1034-2, Section E, we've talked about accessory building and structure shall not be used for a home occupation except as provided in Section 1022-6. So when I look at 1022-6 is what I was just pulling up. It talks about home occupations. And the reason I bring this up is I got a specific call from a resident this week about having a home-based business in an accessory structure that only has a retail presence online, so that it is a quote-unquote virtual business. They don't have customers coming to their home. It's a different section of the code and doesn't necessarily apply to this, but I'm wondering if we might want to have a discussion and consideration about carving out an exception for that under that 1022-6.
So then my question would be the appropriate place to have it actually be under 1022-6, put the way to do it under the home occupation? Because I agree.
Yeah, that's why I think it needs to be under there. So like I said, it doesn't necessarily apply to this, but because it's mentioned as they're all prohibited except as outlined here, it's just by reference. I think we need to have a further conversation about this.
I agree.
And that's something that we can put on our radar and start start moving towards that type of amendment.
Specifically, if there's an internet business and they want to do it out of the ADU, I'm not sure why we would prohibit that.
Well, we talked about this when we were talking about containers, because it was like, no, you can't store anything in your container that applies to a business, and it's like, what? Why would you not be able to store things in there that apply to a business? So I think it's in harmony with that.
Yeah. I think there's just a broader conversation to be had, right? I don't think we want people having a retail business out of a shed in the back or out of a container, right? That's something. But if you're shipping stuff and you're taking it to the post office, but you just happen to put some inventory in a storage thing or in an ADU, or you have your computer in the ADU, right? I'm not sure why that would be prohibited.
Okay.
So I'd like to have a discussion about that, maybe be prepared to tell us some of the thinking of why that would be prohibited and what the recommendations of staff might be.
And by ADU, we actually really mean accessory structures, not
Accessory structures, sorry.
Not dwelling
ADU.
units.
Right, accessory structures, right. Yeah, that's something that we can prepare and bring back to the council for more consideration on.
So other than that, I don't have any problems with the ordinance tonight, so.
Okay, I'll look for a motion then. Any other comments on this?
Since I've drugged this out for a long time, I'd be glad to make a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-03, amending Title 10 pertaining to regulations for accessory structures.
Motion by Sherry.
Second?
Second by Teddy. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
Okay.
Get the bubbles.
Where's the bubble?
We did it.
I'll be blowing them tomorrow morning.
Will you send us a video?
That was maybe the shortest discussion on accessory structures.
Well, I think there's been a lot of work put into this up by staff and by the
think
planning
we've had a lot of
commission.
comment. Okay.
We get it. We got to cross the finish line.
How
So.
about Councilmember Warren?
And by Councilmember Warren. So thank you. Thank you for your work.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, move on to item 9.2, discussion and consideration of a request by the Reserve at Sky Ranch to approve an amendment to the general plan land use map from 3.47 acres of low-density residential to agricultural residential for property located generally at 13208 South Rose Canyon Road.
So the next 4 items are basically coupled into 2 and 2. This one is for a general plan amendment, and the next one will be for a rezone on the same property. So I'm going to kind of discuss both of those in the same fell swoop. And then the next one is for a future church location. So this is for the Reserve at Sky Ranch Phase 3. Currently, it's, this is a subject property location here. This is our basic timeline. The bottom portion of this project is currently under construction right now, and the applicant is simply just looking to kind of finish out what they've started. They're including this northern property outlined in red. Currently, it's zoned as A1, and the general plan map shows it as low-density residential, which fits in for the 8.25 zone, which is what they're requesting with this as well. So that being said, the draft general plan does support this type of use. The hillside agricultural residential would support the 8.25 zone as well as the draft, so the proposed amendment to agricultural residential instead of just strictly residential. So very simple request. They're going to bring in 6 additional lots. There was a, and this will show on the, I guess on the zoning, but the density will be about 1.8 units per acre, which is below the 2 units per acre maximum for the entire development. So, any questions on the general plan portion of this presentation?
Nope. Okay. Any comments, concerns? I'll look for a motion if not.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2022-04, authorizing a general plan amendment for 3.47 acres of property located at 13208 South Rose Canyon Road from low-density residential to agricultural residential.
Motion by Steve,
Second?
second by Sherry. Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. 9.3.
Okay, very much in the same vein. With the general plan being amended now, the applicant is requesting for the zoning to be applied, which is the 8.25 zone. Currently it's zoned as A1, I believe, and 3.47 acres, again, 6 units. Extends the existing subdivision, and here's the density breakdown of 1.8 units per acre. And Planning Commission did recommend approval of both of these unanimously, so I'm not going to go into too much more detail there unless you want me to.
Good.
Okay. Any comments or discussion? If not, I'll look for a motion on 9.3.
I'll motion to approve ordinance number 2022-05, authorizing a zoning map amendment for 3.47 acres of property located at 13208 South Rose Canyon Road from A1 agricultural to A.25 agricultural.
Second.
Motion by Teddy, second by Steve. Sherry?
Yep.
Steve?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yep.
And I'll vote yes.
Okay. For these next, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
So these next 2 also kind of go hand in hand. The first one is a text amendment to the C1 zone, and then the subsequent item is for an application of the C1 zone to property. So with this text amendment, this came before us with an owner that wants to locate a church on their property. Currently, the property is not zoned properly for that kind of use. So this property is at 5320 West Harriman, I think Harriman Main Street. It's currently zone C2, R210, and they'll be rezoning it to C1 if this is approved. Along with this application, the city, we piggybacked on the amendment to the C1 zone to remove warehouse and personal services from the C1 zone. So just to get a basic understanding of the C1 zone, currently there's only 2 properties that are zoned C1. Both of them are currently built with a warehouse and personal service. So this text amendment would make both of those uses as legal nonconforming. Now, that just means that they're limited. They can continue operating as they are for as long as they want to. And in the future, I know that one of the things that we're looking at is in the M1 and our manufacturing zones to allow that use. So if the city wanted to make those make those conforming uses in the future, those could be rezoned back to a zone that they are conform under and can continue to operate as well. So this is just a map of the area that they're kind of looking at. So the top is the applicant's proposal is to add a church as a conditional use in the C1 zone, and then staff's recommendation is to remove the warehouse and personal service from the C1 zone. Again, the purpose of the amendment is to locate a church on the property, and again, to just clean up the existing zoning ordinance to remove the warehouse from the C1 zone. The C1 zone it's kind of your less intense commercial zone, typically supports neighborhood type of development. It can be located, it's a little more compatible with residential neighborhoods. It has the same buffering as a C2 zone. The heights are small, the heights are less, they're reduced, and then the uses aren't quite as intense as a C2 zone either. So this is why we felt that, adding a church to this type of zone feels like it fits with what the zone's purpose is. Personal warehouse, again, it serves more of a regional type of use, which is more typically located in a C2 zone with higher intensity uses. Again, this is just looking at, in terms of adverse effects on property, where church is consistent with other C1 zones and a warehouse would not, where it serves a larger regional demand. And again, the Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval on this as well for the text amendment. Any questions for me on this one?
No, just a comment that I made previous. I never like to change an ordinance to conform to one property, but based on the research on the C1, and this is the properties, and it fits, so it makes sense to do this. It's not necessarily changing the ordinance just to deal with one property. And also, it's important for people to understand exactly what you said, that we're creating legal non-conforming uses, which I don't like to do either, but it's okay because we have pathways for them to be legal and conforming. And if at some point they wanted to expand or adjust their businesses, it wouldn't mean they have to leave their locations. It means we have another zone that they would fit in, that they would conform. Correct?
Correct, yeah. And we're looking at amending the M1 zone and M2 and creating an M2 zone, and what uses are compatible with those. And so, personal warehousing could certainly be applied to either one of those or both of those zones.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Welcome.
Do the other uses they're proposing fit in that C1 zone? School and daycare and other
Yes,
uses?
Yeah, they're both. I believe they're also conditional uses in the C1 zone right now. So it's just the church that's not currently allowed.
I'm debating on making this comment, but I'm just going to say it anyway. So nothing against schools, nothing against churches. Those are important and needed amenities in our community, and I like to see them being built and what they stand for and the benefits they bring. What I don't like is that they sometimes get built in Trump areas where we have planned for commercial development. And I'm concerned that other areas that we have planned for C1 now could become church sites. And I would much rather them stay commercial sites. And so I have some concerns. To your point, it feels like this is a solution for one property, but it opens the door for more of the commercial property that we're trying to preserve in our city to be used for other non-commercial uses.
So then the question I have is, there is no other properties that are not already developed that are C1. if they wanted to come in as a C1, they would have to come back to us and get it through and have it rezoned. So we could say, sorry, right?
Yes, so there's currently, like I said, there's only these two properties that are zoned as C1. For anybody else to be zoned, they would have to come before the council, and then you could impose a zoning condition that, that churches would not be allowed on that use.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because same, concerns me too.
There may be other areas where, it might be, you might be able to accommodate that and be comfortable with that, and then, like you said, other areas that might not, so that would be an option.
Okay.
And I think if we go to the general plan discussion, I think this can be talked about with our new zoning that we're working at. So I think this will.
Yeah, and it's not a big deal. It's just something that we've,
Yeah.
unintended consequences sometimes, right?
Yep.
Where did the churches, what zoning are they approved in currently right now, if they're not in the C1?
They're permitted in most of the residential zones. But I think these guys wanted to have the commercial zone for the
With
commercial
the daycare and the other commercial points, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the concern if they go to residential is they don't come through with the church, and then it turns into more housing, honestly, too, so.
Yeah.
And you can't run an actual business daycare out of the residential side.
Correct.
So, yeah.
That's why I think this fits with what their intent to do is.
Okay, seems good.
Okay, I'll look for a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-06, amending the Harriman City Code to allow churches as a conditional use and prohibit personal service warehouses in the C1 zone.
Second?
Motion by Sherry, second by Teddy. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. One more, item 9.5.
Get to sit down after this one, so. Again, this is part 2 of the, with the text amendment now being approved, the applicant is requesting that the property be adjusted from the C2 and R210 zone to the C1 zone. Again, we're clear on what the applicant is proposing here. In terms of compliance with the general plan, the existing general plan does show this area as commercial, so this is consistent with that plan. I believe in the draft general plan as well, we're working on that, so we can make this consistent with that plan as well. In terms of the extent to which the property amendment may adversely affect the property, so there's already a precast fence on the southern part of the property where the neighborhood abuts this property, and then this use will provide additional amenities to a growing community. And again, most of the site plan and all that subsequent development issues, those will come later on and be reviewed by the Planning Commission as well as staff. Again, this was also recommended as approval by the Planning Commission. Any questions on the rezone portion of this?
It's just the 3 parcels shown in that map, it looks like.
Yes. Yep, just the 3 highlighted here.
Okay. Look for a motion then.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2022-07, amending the Harriman City zoning map for property located at 5222 West, 5230 West, and 5301 West Harriman Boulevard from C2 commercial and R210 residential to C1 commercial.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Sherry. Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry? Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Welcome. We look forward to having I think this is the last hurdle, so I think welcome to the community. Look forward to having you
That'd be great.
coming. So appreciate it, Charles. Charles, right? Okay, that's right. Charles was the other one we met that night. Look forward to having you, though, so thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, move on to item 9.6, discussion and consideration of a resolution approving an assignment of the RSL sign agreement from RSL Training Academy to Broadway Outdoor Media. Chase.
Thank you, Mayor. So this item is on for your discussion and potential action tonight. It is the consideration of an assignment of the RSL sign agreement from RSL Training Academy to Broadway Outdoor Media. Just by way of background, the city entered into that sign agreement with RSL Training Academy in August of 2017. That agreement governs the design standards and advertising uses of 2 signs related to RSL Academy. As you're aware, those signs were linked to RSL Academy. That has recently undergone some ownership changes. As part of that change up, these signs are now under separate ownership. Still linked, there will still be the same advertising requirements in place that are under the agreement. The assignment is simply contemplating the transfer or the assignment of RSL Training Academy's obligations to a new entity. Just by way of information as well, the agreement does state that an assignment is permissible with the consent of both parties. However, it does state that the consent shall not be unreasonably withheld. So as part of your discussion tonight, if you feel like there's a reason why you wouldn't want to assign that, you should articulate that, and it should be a reasonable basis to withhold consent, right? Other than that, like I stated, the agreement will pretty much remain unchanged, other than the entities will change, the obligations will transfer from RSL Training Academy to Broadway Outdoor Media. There is a representative of Broadway Outdoor here tonight if you have any questions for them related to the future management of that sign agreement and the signs.
My only question about this is, and I just wanted to reiterate, because I think you just said it, but there are lots of other outdoor media advertising companies that would love to be able to put up digital signage around the city, and we've largely been opposed to that. There's an exception for this particular sign because of the constraints that are put on it, and I just want to ensure that the only thing changing is the entity on whose name is on the agreement, but none of the terms of the agreement are changing, none of the restrictions that are placed on it are changing.
There is language, and let me pull up the assignment itself, but there is language within the assignment that states who can affiliated, I'm just going to pull up the language here. I'm sorry, I didn't have it ready to roll. Approved advertisers. So there's an approved advertisers provision within the original agreement, and it states what uses are permitted, the sponsors of events within the project, so within RSL, a dollar amount that they're contributing. The one thing that does get added to that is now that this is transferring to Broadway Media, it's considering Broadway Media as a potential approved advertiser, as long as they're affiliated with the project. So the scope of the advertising uses has not changed. It's simply acknowledging that the signs are owned by a new entity who is now affiliated with the overall project. Does that make sense the way I've described that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Without getting into too specifics, I just want to make sure this doesn't open a can of worms on anything else.
And the conversation I had with the applicant is that is on you, right? If there's a challenge to the way that the sign is being managed, that's something that they would have to deal with. And we might get drug into that, but it's not a basis of what's established in the assignment, right? The agreement still has those same restrictions in place that we feel comfortable with. That doesn't mean that an outside party might try to come and challenge that still, but the way that I've read this and applied it and the way I've understood the transfer of ownership with regard to the signs, I feel comfortable with the language that has been added to that.
So it's not switching it to a billboard that they can
It's
put
not
whatever
switching.
up they want.
That is the key word. It's still not a billboard.
Yeah,
Right.
it's very restricted on what can be displayed on it, what can be advertised on it.
Summarized, it's still project-related advertisements.
Got it.
Yep, it's simply owned by a different entity, which makes no base, it's not a basis of determining whether it's a billboard or not. Any other questions for me on that?
That was it for me.
Yeah, my main concern would be the content of what it's advertising, but yeah.
You feel comfortable that we're not changing that content?
I do. Yep.
Have we had any other concerns or with the sign of how it's previously been operated?
Yeah, we've had,
We had a
other
potential
companies.
challenge that never materialized, right? There were threats of a challenge a few years ago that never got much further than maybe some warnings, but we had outside counsel involved in that, and they felt comfortable with the language of the agreement, so.
Can we get our photos on it every other day?
Do you want me to write that in real
Yeah,
quick? Yeah,
put it- yeah.
oh, for
You
sure.
want your picture on it every other day?
Nope. I don't even want to see Teddy's
For a
picture on there.
30-second rule?
Well, it's in your district, so.
That's right, that's right.
Or you take all the credit for the high school, everything going on over
Good for
there.
that one, too.
Okay, I'll look for a motion then.
Oh, motion, Mayor. Motion to approve resolution number R03-2022, consenting to the assignment of the RSL Sign Development Agreement from RSL Training Academy to Broadway Outdoor Media LLC.
I'll second.
Motion by Teddy, second by Steve. Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Greg, thanks for coming.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, with that, it'd bring to close our meeting tonight. Future meetings, March 3rd, Planning Commission meeting at 7 o'clock PM. March 9th will be our next city council work meeting at 5:30? It says 5, we're still 5:30, right? 5:30. City council meeting 7 o'clock. With permission, I mean, I'm giving myself permission and any others. If you want to announce some community stuff, I want to take a few minutes to, also some community events coming up.
Please.
They were, I made a note here. I know this weekend, Friday and Saturday, there are 3 shows. Mountain Ridge, Harriman, Mountain Ridge High is doing a musical, Dr. Seussical the Musical, 7 o'clock Friday and Saturday, and then a 2 o'clock matinee on Saturday. The event's also listed on here, Harriman Harmonics next week, 3rd through 5th, which is a great I mean,
Gotta
come
get
out.
tickets.
You
if
gotta get,
haven't.
yep,
You gotta go.
great night, very intimate setting, very different.
So fun.
Great time. And then looking forward to Hungry Harriman starting back up on Monday, March 7th. Any other community events anybody's aware of or any other events?
No, I can't speak enough about the Harriman Harmonics. They're amazing. We caught a little bit of show run through last week or the week before, and it's comical. I mean, just the 5-10 minutes we saw in rehearsals, it's gonna be exciting. Bring your date, have fun.
Absolutely. Oh, I will, one other thing, tomorrow night, also 6 o'clock here, there's a redistricting open house. I don't think we talk enough about this. This is a critical, just like with the state, it's gone through this process, the county, after every census, we're required to redistrict, and tomorrow night is our last open house to come provide input. I think it's done well, so I think that's why we haven't got much pushback, or comment, but I think we'll be here from 6 to 8 tomorrow night, so feel free to come on out and give us your feedback about the new districts.
There was cookies last time, so if that incentivizes anybody.
I just don't want to go and hear everybody fighting to get out of my district and into Sherry's district.
That's all I've heard about.
That's it,
what's
that's
gonna
it.
happen.
Everybody wants to go to Mountain Ridge High School because you're over there, though.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I will accept a motion to recess. We need to go back into
Work meeting.
first, and then have closed, so
So
however
moved.
that motion. So
What he
moved.
said.
I'll second that.
Motion by Sherry, second by Steve. Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thanks for lasting the whole meeting. out
Antonio, always good to see you, my friend.
Tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday to